Okay, so we've reached the final 10 minutes of the workshop, pentatonic workshop. So I'm just going to summarize here, and this final 10 minutes is going to be part of a podcast, live stream podcast. If you are listening on the podcast, this will be about 10 minutes, and it's for the last 10 minutes of a 90-minute workshop that we do on Saturdays on the YouTube member area. All right, so to summarize, we talked about the major pentatonic scale. We came up with color combinations here. Pull my sleeve a little bit. That way we can separate the patterns, and we can say, okay, blue on this side and then yellow on this side. So put those two together. All right. And we started out by comparing that to a couple G7 chords. When I drop 3 in a root position. Okay. To give ourselves a reference, and then we compare that to the G7 arpeggio. And took a look at what was different and what was the same. So we noticed that we have a flat 7 in the G7 arpeggio, and we don't have that in this G major pentatonic. We have a 13s nearby, and also we have the 9. So the major pentatonic has the major triad of the G7, and then it has the 9 and the 13. Then we explored the major flat 9 pentatonic, and so I took that and took a look at how that might relate to that arpeggio, and thought about some chord type shapes and sounds that are maybe available kind of between that arpeggio and the major flat 9 pentatonic. And we also checked out the major flat 6 pentatonic. Okay. And thought there, you can think about maybe some other kind of chords that might work. Okay. So you can include maybe some tones from the G7 arpeggio and some tones from the G major flat 6 pentatonic, and come up with some ideas for voicings or melodies. And okay. And then so those are a couple scales that we talked a little bit about last week on the Jerry Bergonzi Volume 2 pentatonics. He mentions those two. So as we're this kind of workshop sort of thing, so we just explore the idea of, well, what if we had a flat 9 and a flat 6? And it's pretty cool sounding. So let's check it out. So G7, and we're thinking about It's kind of a cool shape as well. Okay. So another pentatonic scale, which I like a lot too, is the minor flat 5 pentatonic. Um, so we'll call that the minor flat 5 pentatonic. So this would be B. And we're thinking about G7. So and kind of working with a position. So that was one of the first ones that was a rootless pentatonic. So there are a lot of directions you can go on with that, but this one's still pretty close to the original chord as well. Maybe even closer in some respects. Okay. And then, so Jerry Bergonzi, and I highly recommend his series of books, Inside Improvisation series. We're thinking about this volume 2, and in this talk, we're writing out some guitar patterns for some of these ideas that he has. So he talks about this scale from the perspective more of like the D minor 6 pentatonic. So I've often thought of this particular scale in those terms as well, but also as a G dominant pentatonic. So that's what we explored there. Since we're thinking about this dominant 7th arpeggio, and then we talked about altering that in various ways. So maybe flat 9. Okay. Another one, which I mentioned here, that is. Did I just duplicate that twice? Yeah, I did. Okay. So another one, which I wasn't really planning to write anymore at this point, but another one that just now that I'm kind of thinking of it, you could combine that with either sharp 4 or the sharp 5. So I'm just gonna write out one case where you'd have a sharp 5 or flat 13 kind of sound. So we'll bump that 5th up here real quick, and that one's also really cool and very practical scale. All right, so and that doesn't mean your chord has to have no 5th, or it could be that way, or it could be compatible with a more altered sound. It's kind of the neat thing I think about pentatonics is you get a little more openness and than you would with a 7-note scale. Okay. Just reverse the order of those 2. Okay. All right, so dominant flat 9, flat 13, or raised 5th kind of makes sense to think of it as a raised fifth in the context of the pentatonic, because we took the fifth and raised it. So, and then also the dominant pentatonic with the raised 9. It's kind of an interesting sound. And then we explored a little bit of some of this whole tone kind of ideas with the thought that maybe you could have some tones in between that larger interval, which could be either whole tone type scale, 6-note scale, or maybe even have just a 6-note scale with one or the other of these two tones. So a couple other scales. That's kind of if you think of it as sort of a part of say C melodic minor from G, or we had this one we talked about, which could be kind of a Lydian dominant, part of Lydian dominant, or this one, more whole tone pentatonic, which is another one Jerry Bergonzi was talking about. Could be part of an altered scale, or A flat melodic minor. Okay, so that is sort of what we have. Let's see how many. Just curious how many different types of. We're basically thinking about chord scales for pentatonics, and so came up maybe 11 scales, and would definitely not be limited to that. There are many more, and maybe we'll explore more too in coming weeks. But I probably want to get to some other types of chords that we can talk about. But could spend a lot of time talking about dominant seventh type sounds. All right, everybody. Well, thanks to those members who are supporting the channel and checking out this live stream, and thanks to those who are listening to the 10-minute summary on it on the podcast. All right, everybody. Have a great practice session, and I will see you all in the next one.